All right, Emily, so excited to see you today. Thank you so much for joining me. Really excited to talk about your background and your business and this adventure you've been on in launching a consumer product. But before we get into Domaine Santé, your business, and I know you've got some product examples there, maybe you can hold one up. You've got the big version there.
I do. We have multiple sizes. We have our large size, small size, and even our miniatures.
Ooh,
But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Okay,
Right?
yeah, exactly. Exactly right.
Well, thank you so much for having me today.
Of course, of course. I'm excited to share your story. So, before we get to that, yeah, what's your background? Where are you from? And talk a little bit about your career path leading up to launching the business, because I know it all ties together.
It does, kind of in unexpected ways. I definitely did not foresee this right out of college per se. I went to University of Arizona and got a degree in nutrition. So I worked in both the clinical setting. I've worked a little on the food science side of things. But really, I fell in love with private consulting, with those one-on-one clients, and also in more of like a group setting, wellness setting where people were already interested in the topic. Of course, that makes it easier, low hanging fruit, if you will. So I had spent time working actually in the clinical setting in oncology in Arizona. And I moved out here to work at Sharp in the same setting and realized that was not for me. It's such a standard of care that I don't think really aligns with people's actual day-to-day practice and eating habits and rituals. So I really thought I needed to be on that preventative side. So I started working with chiropractic clinics, gyms, and the individuals, like I said. And what I really found across all these different genres and types of clients was that sugar was such a factor and such an issue for so many people. I mean, I know you eat healthy, Felina, but you can, I'm sure, attest that. Well, I mean, and it's so tempting. It's so addicting. It's hard to not have sugar in the diet, right?
Yeah, I want to pause on that a little bit. I will say I don't put sugar in my coffee. I try not to add sugar, but there's sugar in everything we eat, right?
Everything.
Absolutely. So what is the impact of that? What are we seeing? What are the chronic diseases or any statistics, roundabout statistics you can share on that?
Right. I mean, well, you look at, just the early implications of diabetes, of chronic heart conditions, sugar. I mean, it plays a role on your pulmonary system. You see digestive upset, skin condition, in the very short term. When you're thinking about what you're doing on a daily basis, I mean, you're wreaking havoc on your skin. Not to mention internally, the long-term damage that it really has on your body it's horrendous. And what really startled me is when I started researching into this further, was that not only sugar, of course, the white refined sugar that we know is the devil, these alternatives simultaneously cause a lot of havoc on metabolism, on the digestive system. You see people that are using like items like the non-nutritive sweeteners like stevia. They're literally having these digestive issues because it's raising blood sugars to almost like a ghost effect on the metabolism. So people in the long term are having these incredible digestive and metabolic problems that they're just now finding out from these products that have been boosted for years as health products.
Yeah.
So
it's so frustrating to me because, and I'm sure it's more frustrating for you than it is me, but I mean, to your point, it's like we have been sold a bill of goods for so long, right? Like, don't eat the refined sugar, have sweet and low, we know like the iterations of this, right? But somebody always comes out with something new and it's going to be great. But like, the logic is if you put something that's not natural in your body, that's the chemical breakdown and the molecules and whatever, all the things, right? I mean, it stands to reason your body's going to go, what the heck is this?
Exactly. I mean, it's carcinogenic. It really, there's nothing good coming out of it besides, for example, for diabetics, they're not essentially raising their blood sugar to those detrimental levels, but at the same time they're experiencing these other side effects that are just as damaging. So and it was so hard too, because I was never one to preach a complete elimination diet to my clients. I found the most success in preaching moderation and finding that sort of balance in one's lifestyle in order to promote long-term health.
Yeah.
And so, it was like, what do I recommend to them? What would I choose? People always ask me, what do you choose in your kitchen? What do you cook with? What do you put on your yogurt in the morning? What do you add to your, tea and coffee? And for me, it was, I definitely was okay with a locally sourced honey, where you're getting like the antibacterial and antifungal properties associated with that locality of the product itself, the harvest.
Yeah.
So there was some options on the market, but then you look at honey and it's actually more concentrated in sugar than white refined sugar. So I mean,
so the stuff I'm buying at Costco is not the answer, is what you're saying.
I mean, there's definitely worse options, and that's really what I was always trying to find was the lesser of the evils instead of going full force with the refined sugar. But I knew there had to be something better for consumers and something that I could feel more comfortable recommending.
Yeah. So you didn't find it, so you went and created it.
Well, what was funny is my husband, he's in the food and beverage industry, and we had always been really drawn. I mean, even early in our relationship, we had been so drawn to the flavors and nuances of French wine. And so we're super passionate. I mean, I know you love your wine too. Yes. We're super passionate about French wine and the very the interesting complexities of all the different varietals and regions. And we were always we had such a huge affinity for French wine. So he always thought it'd be fun to incorporate some of those flavors into the bar scene, because then when you look in the bar scene, the main players there, you have, your simple syrup, which once again, refined sugar, boring. I mean, it does nothing more than sweeten, right?
Yeah.
And then you have agave, which is incredibly unsustainable. So that's really, for the bar, that's not a long-term play either. Yeah. And so he was kind of like having the idea of incorporating these flavors in the bar side. I definitely was interested in the sustainability element, obviously the health element. We all know about red wine and the incredible antioxidant content. There was resveratrol that is a huge player in the actual makeup of the fruit itself and the skins of the grapes. So I was all in. I was like, oh yeah, let's bring a little more health to the bar scene. And we had connections with growers up in Northern California, so it kind of made sense. But then we stepped back and thought about it, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is incredibly usable for everyone, not just your bartender, not even your home bartender. I mean, everyone, moms, kids, everyone.
Yeah.
So that's where almost our two worlds kind of married, and we realized, our love for French wine could be really usable.
Yeah, exactly. In a different way. So Emily, what year was this? When did you come up with the idea?
So we've always been really wonderful at timing. We had this idea the year we were planning our wedding, which was 2016. So we're like, oh, hey, right after we get back from our honeymoon, let's launch a business.
Yeah.
So we really, the idea came about and we really just started bringing it to friends to get kind of like a market validation.
Awesome.
So we wanted to see what.
How long was this period of development for you?
Oh, sure. So that we had like a really like prototype rough version of the product the beginning of 2016, and we spent most of the year just kind of bringing it to people and chefs, bar experts, for, just regular consumer friends,
Yeah.
people that we thought would have a pretty critical opinion of the product.
Yeah.
So and we started with just one plain white grape varietal. That's actually this one here. So this was our first, our baby. This was the first blend. It's definitely, there's been iterations. It's a little different than what it was in those early days, but we just brought it to people and said, try it out in your kitchen, taste it, do whatever you want with it. Tell us what you think. And we had just an overwhelming response of interest and intrigue, and people were like, oh my gosh, how can one little product add so much flavor and character to everything. So it was really, it was shocking actually, because we didn't, we loved it from the start, but you never know if other people will.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure you've been asked this question like 8 million times. Like, why has no one done this before?
Exactly. There's so many excess grapes at at the harvest time.
Yeah.
So obviously many of those grapes go to winemaking, but there's typically such a surplus that farmers can't even unload their grapes to all the winemakers. So we thought, why don't we take those grapes that are the same quality, the same high quality products that is used in winemaking, and use those in another way. It's almost like an upcycling of sorts.
Yeah.
And we just loved that we were getting that quality for no environmental detriment or of harm. We never planted new vines or cleared any land. We were working with these farmers that would have otherwise, not been able to utilize their crop.
Yeah, that's amazing. I absolutely love that. So talk about the process of, just getting the business off the ground. Any lessons learned, since 2016? You're like, you have all day.
I know. How much time do we have, Felina?
What are the highlights? I know, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
But, just some of the things that you learned, because folks that are watching this, maybe they have a product idea, maybe it's in the beverage industry, just things that you'd want to share.
Sure. Well, for us, we definitely just did it as like a side hustle to start. So, obviously, unless you have a fair amount of funding behind you, I always think a side hustle is the way to start a business. I wouldn't have done it any other way.
Yeah.
And you're learning so much in the beginning. You almost don't know what you're doing enough to fully dive in unless you have incredible co-founders or something like that have more experience. But we were obviously a little new in the packaged food industry, but we knew. My husband knew beverage, I know health, so it was definitely something we felt comfortable in our expertise and exploring. So we started just launching it into bars and restaurants via friends and colleagues.
Mm-hmm.
And then I simultaneously started selling at the farmers markets just to get a feel for more of like the general consumer. And that initial knowledge we gained was completely invaluable. Being face to face with the customer. I'm sure almost everyone watching this would has heard this, that the experience you get speaking with your consumer directly is, there's nothing that could replace that. And so what's interesting is we didn't always listen to that, which I think has caused us a few hiccups along the way. Our product we have always really emphasized the wine element all the way from the name, like our
Yeah.
names, Bordeaux Blanc. We've done like clever little plays on the French wine regions that are near and dear to our hearts.
Yeah.
Whereas, I think some of that we've learned has been almost a hindrance to market penetration because it's not, the everyday norm that people are used to seeing. So while it does stand out on the shelf, it's in standard wine packaging. So people do sometimes, they second guess what it is and think it's wine. We actually
no, obviously, I mean, I know this, but just to be clear for folks watching, no alcohol content at all in this, right? I mean, it is a sweetener that you can put in. Kind of give us like some high level rundowns of the best ways to use the product.
Sure. Yes. So we take the grapes and actually press them the same the way they would for winemaking. But instead of throwing the liquid into a fermenter, we take away a little bit of the water in a really nice low heat process. And then you're left with our grape nectar. So it retains so much of those really powerful antioxidants. The flavors too, it's almost like you would taste that grape right off the vine. And then obviously it's in a liquid form, so you can use it to drizzle on nearly anything. My stepdaughter won't have her waffles any other way. She's like, well, she always says, I want the yellow one. I want the orange one. So, it's kid approved. We have, of course, tons of people using it in their home bar to sweeten their cocktails. You can make a killer old fashioned with it. You can also use it in any baking recipe. So we've had chefs use and convert our product into recipes that call for like a refined or like a crystallized sugar.
Okay.
So you can use it in all aspects of baking.
Wow.
As simple as drizzling on your yogurt, putting in your tea and coffee. We've seen everything. Glazes on like a fish or a salmon or something like that. Compressed fruits. We've seen incredible creations. So
that is amazing. Have you had any contests yet?
Any contests?
Yeah, like how to use the product, like.
Oh, yeah, we've done for Instagram things like that where people can show us like their most unique creations. And definitely, yeah, it's definitely a fun way to get in the kitchen, I think, and almost recreate some of your classics with a new product.
Yeah, that is awesome. I love it. Going back to kind of lessons learned, Emily, maybe talk about just, again, things you've learned along the way. I know it's always said in business, you always need, at least twice the money you think you need to launch a business. Just any insights you can give and advice.
Definitely. Yeah, we were pretty self-funded for a fair amount of the business so far. Right before COVID, we were actually going into a fundraising round to try to scale up the business quite a bit. And that was, of course, like I was telling you, one of those wonderful timing experiences we've had over the years. But I think we kind of just had to put the pause button on for these 14 months, and we're really starting to gain ground again from where we left off last March. So we're looking at scaling. I would say prior to scaling, some of the things I learned, really, I think you need a fair amount of expertise in your field before launching a business. I always use the example, I love to cook, but I'm not a chef. So I would never have, gone into like a catering service, for example. So while, of course, I'm super passionate about the product, I do have a lot of experience under my belt, which has helped legitimize the brand and the product itself. And I think that's been really, really helpful for us. I definitely, not being a nutritionist, would have made a lot of those like health questions, because people know their sugar. People know about sugar, and they ask the most intricate questions. So it's definitely been a lifeline for us to have, the background in both the food and beverage industry and nutrition. That's been very helpful.
That's awesome. Any channels in which you've sold that have been particularly good for you, or you're like, stay away from that?
Well, we've had a little trouble with our e-commerce just because it's so expensive to ship glass. So, I've definitely learned that after the fact that, keeping if you're starting an e-commerce brand, you definitely want to have your product weight under a pound.
Yeah.
So that's been a little difficult. We've found some creative ways to get around that, minimal packaging and that sort of thing. But that was definitely a barrier for us. We've seen a lot of growth in specialty shops in the past year, even with COVID.
Yeah.
So, having those really almost innovative buyers that get excited about the product too, I think has been pivotal for us. So, finding people that, they care about each and every product in their store. And while that might not sound like, a scalable business model, it actually has been, because people trust these business owners. Small business has had such a rise in the last 4 years. We've luckily been riding that wave as well. So, I think finding those passionate people that really get behind the brand has gone a lot further than, some of our other distribution outlets.
Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome. I love it. So what's next? What are you most excited about for the next year or so for the business?
Well, we are kind of starting to think about, or I guess we haven't ever stopped thinking about, but we're starting to put a little bit more weight in the fact that our brand might need a refresh. So, it's definitely there's a point where, the passion and so much of like what we put into the brand has only got us a certain way or a certain level in business. Whereas I think if, releasing a little control, if you will, from some of the branding and marketing, I think will help us grow exponentially, because, once people try the product, they are hooked. Yeah. And we just need more people to try the product. So, we're considering a pretty significant brand refresh this year.
Okay, awesome. Any thoughts about the tie back to the French passion versus the California brand? I mean, since you are sourcing California grapes.
Yeah, I think the locality has actually been a really great factor for us. So I think, almost encompassing the brand in more of like a worldly culture and feel. Okay. But simultaneously focusing on our California roots, I think I think that's kind of the focus we're looking to take, because I think people just really value the California locality and the fact we're sourcing these sustainable grapes. Yeah. And I think that's such a great product highlight that we need to continue with the new branding.
Yeah, California has such a name for itself, definitely different than the French region, but but I could see where that, especially again, since you're sourcing grapes here in California, that makes a lot of sense. Awesome.
Yeah. There's definitely the opportunity to give our homage though to the French wine culture. I mean, California wouldn't be here without it, right?
True. Yes. Very, very true. Absolutely. The new kids on the block.
That's right.
I love it. Emily, if folks do want to buy direct from your website, we'll put all that information, in the description as well. Just out of curiosity, are you selling in any stores here in San Diego right now?
Specialty Produce has our large and small sizes, so you can pick that up every day. There's a number of specialty shops on our website you can check out. So we're in a number of regions. That's probably near all of our lovely viewers here. And then of course, yes, we ship to US and Canada, all of our products as well.
Great. Awesome.
Mhm.
Thanks so much for your time, Emily.
Thank you for having me. Thanks so much.